After 3,138 days, more than $1 trillion in the lives of 4,400 and more American troops, the American presence in Iraq is finally nearing its end. In our fourth story, despite a president and all major news coverage saying so, however, it is not so much a withdrawal as it is this country being shown the door. Thus, President Obama is both being credited for something he didn't do and being blamed for something he couldn't stop. Due to an agreement with Iraq signed by President Bush in 2006, all American forces were to be withdrawn from Iraq by December 31st this year. The president had hoped to maintain several thousand in Iraq as military trainers, but as we told you earlier in the week, Iraq's parliament was unable to agree on a proposal to continue immunity for U.S. troops in their country. So to avert those service personnel from being liable for prosecution, there will be no force left behind. Of course, that's not a very dramatic story.
As a candidate for president, I pledge to bring the war in Iraq to a responsible end for the sake of our national security and to strengthen American leadership around the world. After taking office, I announced a new strategy that would end our combat mission in Iraq and remove all of our troops by the end of 2011. So, today, I can report that, as promised, the rest of our troops in Iraq will come home by the end of the year. After nearly 9 years, America's war in Iraq will be over. So to sum up, the United States is moving forward from a position of strength. The long war in Iraq will come to an end by the end of this year.
Joining me now, Tim Dickinson, political correspondent for Rolling Stone. Tim, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Is this one of those rare instances when all political sides are spinning reality into something else? I mean, we were asked to leave. Are we not now saying, you can't fire me, I quit?
A little bit, but I mean, this is sort of the definition of an orderly transition that we're seeing here. This is a deal brokered by a Republican president, executed by a Democratic president, and in conjunction with a democratically elected Iraqi government. So they've asked us to leave, and we're leaving. And this war, this awful misadventure that we've somehow salvaged, is coming to an end. And I think we can say hallelujah.
Will people, in fact, care why we're out of Iraq, or just happy that we are?
I think most people are just going to be happy that we are. I mean, what we're talking about is a force of 10, 15,000 troops that would have stayed there and helped train Iraqis, to bolster the military there, and that could be important around the edges. But I don't think that's going to be the difference between Iraq having a functioning democracy and Iraq breaking out in a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So I think most people are going to say, check that off the list. Thank you very much. Let's bring them home.
In defense of the president, he did promise this outcome. Is there any evidence that the couple thousand stay idea was tailored in some way that it would necessarily fail with the Iraqis? In other words, was this an outcome that he was happy to have occur?
Well, I mean, the ironic thing about this is that the president seemingly would have gladly taken a small political hit with his base to leave this training force behind. And so that this isn't sort of a naked political calculation. This is a president sort of being backed into keeping his campaign promise by the Iraqi parliament. So there's a small irony here, but I think it's perfectly acceptable for the president to say, hey, I promised this. This is what I'm doing. Go me. I mean, that's politics.
Of course, somebody did say it was naked political calculation. It was Mitt Romney. And then Bachmann had the line about, we should have demanded that Iraq repay the full cost of liberating them given their rich oil revenues, meaning she has not dropped the crazy in the slightest. But that really, that was about the end of what looked like, since these comments came out so quickly, a cascade of remarks that didn't happen. Is that by itself indicative of how little there is left of the we need to stay in Iraq for 100 years crowd that used to run this country?
Well, I think what it reveals is that there's, if you look at the polling for about, since 2006, there's been about a third of the country that wants a strong imperial presence in Iraq, and that is, no coincidence, the Republican base. And so here you are in the middle of a primary season, and you have Republican politicians sounding kind of foolish by trying to cater to this small dead-ender crowd.
The Rolling Stone political correspondent, Tim Dickinson, very useful and concise information. Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
The Republicans killed Part 1 of the jobs bill against a backdrop of new and horrifying state-by-state poverty numbers. And the British member of Parliament who confronted Rupert Murdoch today in Los Angeles will join us. We continue.